where I play, as long as I go number one in the draft.
From the Erie Otters, Connor McDavid.
From the London Knights, Mitch Marner.
From the Western Hockey League's Brandon Wheat Kings, Nolan Patrick.
This is Tracking the Draft with Craig Button.
He checks an enormous amount of boxes. Nobody in this draft did more with less. I absolutely love him. It's not his skills that anybody's concerned about. It's that playing attitude. And quite frankly, it's really poor.
Speeding towards the future of the NHL.
From the U.S. Development Program, Jacob Truba.
From Färjestad of the Swedish Elite League, Jonas Brodin.
From the Boston U Terriers, Brady Tkachuk.
He could play in the NHL next year. He's one of those guys.
Here's your host, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 16 of season 2 of Tracking the Draft with Craig Button. The director of scouting for TSN will be along shortly. My name is Dean Millard, and this is where the stars of tomorrow are discovered and discuss. And we also talk about other things than just players. We are going to discuss today what Craig's scouting plan is for the rest of the season as he puts together the Craigslist with travel restrictions. We're going to talk about how scouts don't always they do notice the bad plays, but they also notice the subtle plays and just how to pick out those subtle plays. By the way, we are going to do Craig's Counsel next week, story time and scouting tips. So if you're interested in scouting and you have a question, we'll tell you how to email it to us in just a little bit. Or if you want to hear some great stories, you have a question about a story or a particular player maybe, shoot them our way. We will give you the email address in just a little bit, how to get in touch with us. Here are the 3 players that we are going to be discussing today. Logan Stankoven of the Kamloops Blazers, Cameron Whynot of the Halifax Mooseheads in the QMJHL, and we will be taking a look at Matt Coronato of the Chicago Steel, who might just be an absolute steal for pipeline prospects in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League, paying just $35 for a guy who has 30. He's paying less per goal this year with Matt Coronato, who has a lot of goals. We'll tell you all about it as we go. We're also going to discuss the Buffalo Sabres making a coaching change and letting Ralph Krueger go. I'm totally surprised. I'm shocked. I thought Ralph Krueger was going to do a really good job from all the talk that I had heard here in Edmonton from the players and what I saw in him turning around the Oilers. Obviously, he did some good work at the World Cup. But I'll ask Craig about that and find out kind of what his thoughts are on that situation. Craig joins us courtesy of the UFFS hotline. It is the most realistic, highest stakes fantasy platform out there. And you can become a scout, scouting real world players and then having them auctioned or selling them directly, depending on when you pick them up, to franchises in the league. So just like Craig scouts these players, you could be scouting real world players, making some money, and maybe joining an affiliate. Who knows? We'll see. In this game, you own the game. So get in the game where you own the game. Check it out, uffsports.com. Brand new website is coming. You would be scouting these players, listing them. They become NFTs on the Zilliqa blockchain, and boom, this thing is growing so much. And we thank Craig Button for being a part of high-level scouting in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League, of which my wife, Trish Millard, is the owner. All right, let's get into it right now with Mr. Craig Button.
Here he is, the director of scouting for TSN, former GM of the Calgary Flames, and a Stanley Cup champion with the Dallas Stars. Plus, he's a sharp-dressed man with a heart of gold and a passion to match it. Craig Button.
Well, Craig, as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, it brings us closer and closer to the draft. The trade deadline is very shortly. We'll see how many prospects are involved in that. But I want to ask you what kind of the plan is, for you and the other scouts that you've talked to in the last little while for the rest of the season. How do you go about putting together the Craig's list this year when you've, when the season has been so scattered? And are you planning on getting out and doing a lot of traveling, or you watch a lot of video this year?
Well, you're limited to how much travel you can do, Dean, number one. So that's the same thing the NHL scouts have. Obviously, there's an opportunity to go and watch some games live, but there really isn't the opportunity to travel and to move about. And keep in mind as well is that the opportunity to go in rinks isn't as wide open as it once was. So there's a lot more scouting via video. And the video feeds are really good, and you try to avail yourself as best as you can, and that's what I've been doing, and that's what you have to do, and I've been doing that over the course of the year, and just like the NHL scouts, you got to deal with the evaluation template you have in front of you, and that's how do you use video. When do you go to a rink? What benefits do you get by going to the rink? And you do get benefits, but you're not going to be able to do that as much. So the evaluation process is using what's at your disposal to the best of your abilities. That's what I'm going to do. And in the case of a number of players, I've had an opportunity to watch them live, from the time they were 15 and 16. But, now you miss the part, where you watch the different intervals of time and see, where they developed, how much they've progressed in their game, how much maybe they haven't progressed. And then you weigh that all together. But, what I'm doing is exactly what the NHL scouts are doing. And, there's no other way to do it. I mean, you can throw your arms up and say, oh, okay, it's not the way I'm used to doing it, but you got to find a different way to do it. And certainly, my list will be reflective of the information I can gather from not only my previous live viewings, but from my viewings that I've been able to do on video.
And when you're watching players, we all recognize the guy that undresses three people and goes top shelf for a beautiful goal, or the 5-star giveaway, serving up the pizza pie up the middle, as Jason Strudwick likes to call it. So we can all recognize those good and bad plays. But how is it important, and how do you watch for those subtle plays, those little things in a player's game that maybe go unnoticed by an untrained eye? Is that just super concentration? Are you focused in on one player all the time? What's your, your solution for that?
Yeah, I don't go in with one general, I'm going to just watch a player. Sometimes you're just watching the game and you're watching to see, how the flow of the game works and, how a player is fitting into that flow of the game. And other times you just, that player's coming out and you really want to zero in on them. And so you do that. One of the things, and you use the word subtle, and I'll give you an example that I think that you have to be really aware of. So let's just use, I'm not going to use a name, I'm going to say a really good scoring winger, a really talented offensive player that plays on the wing. So, you're watching him play and you can go to the game and you can, at the end of the game, you can say, oh, geez, he had 1 assist, he only had 2 shots on goal. But what you have to be able, and this is where I use the word translate. And this is where it's really becomes, if you see that player breaking to the right areas, but he doesn't have players that can get him the puck, and you start to say, wait a sec, he's reading the play right, he knows where to go to receive a puck, he gets himself open, and as you start to look at the abilities and try to project it, you say, well, when he gets with better players, he's going to get the puck. Conversely, a player that's going to the wrong places all the time, it doesn't matter how good the players are or aren't, he's never going to be in the right spot to get the puck. So it doesn't matter how fast he skates or how hard he shoots, he's going to be limited. So those are things that you look at, like, how the pass is delivered. Is the pass delivered on time? A good scoring winger, if he gets the puck in the right spot, and, not every pass is going to be perfect, but if he's not getting the puck at the right times or in the right spots, that, and you can say, yeah, he didn't score tonight, but he might have done everything you want to see from an offensive player, but certain things out of his control. If you're going to just look at the score sheet and say he didn't score, therefore he's not very good, I think that's where a lot of mistakes can be made. Now, obviously, we're talking about good players, and good players find a way to get on the score sheet. But that's just one example of things you look for. Defensemen, anticipating the play. So the puck might be down in the corner, but where's that defenseman moving? Is he moving into an area where, he doesn't realize that he's vulnerable up the middle of the ice or behind him? So, or is he taking a little step and saying, hey, you're not going to be able to make this play here because I'm reading what you're trying to do? Those are all things that you might not be able to capture on video that become important elements of evaluation, in my view, Dean.
All right, let's get to the first player we are going to discuss today, and it's Logan Stankoven, a forward with the Kamloops Blazers in the WHL. Daltac Scouting Services picked him up for $520 in our auction. He actually went for $525, but the scouting service that wanted him didn't have that money, so the next team got him. The other scout got fined. But I remember at one point, Craig, he was really hyped as a special player, maybe top 5, maybe top 10, but now a lot of rankings have him late first round, early second round. Is there any kind of reason, do you think, for his drop in some of the rankings? And did you have him really high and have him a little bit lower now as well?
Well, number one, I don't know what other people are evaluating, so where they list them or why they list them there, I really have no comment on it because I don't know. Here's what I'll say about Logan. You asked me earlier about scouting. So you go and watch a game. When you start watching younger players and you don't have a real good feel or a real good background on them, you start watching the game just overall, and you just try to watch the game. Okay, where's the puck? Because there's one puck on the ice, and so you start watching the game. You start seeing, and then something starts to happen. Somebody keeps showing up around that puck or with the puck all the time, and then you start to go, wait a second, that's a guy I need to watch, and that is who I just described with Logan Stankoven. So all I know is that from the first time I've watched him and every time since. He's got the puck. He's about to get the puck. He's dangerous with the puck. He's getting a scoring chance. He's creating a scoring chance. He's got a great brain in terms of the game. And as the late, great Claude Ruel told me many years ago when I first started scouting, he says, Craig, watch the guy with the puck. Usually that's the good player. Well, Logan Stankoven's that guy with the puck. So if you want to ask me what you're going to hear about Logan Stankoven, I'm going to tell you what you're going to hear. Oh, he's undersized. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So again, I can look at the height and tell you, yeah, he's only this height. Oh, he might not be the fastest player. Yeah. Okay. So those are the things that are known. But then I start to look at all the other qualities. Great brain, great hockey sense, quick, agile, able to speed up or slow down, which really keeps defenders on their heels. Plays inside the dots, plays hard, can shoot the puck, gets open at the right times, doesn't get himself involved in unnecessary battles where he doesn't have an advantage. So what Logan Stankoven does is beat you up with his brain, and then he's got the skill to take over. I see a really good NHL player. I see a player that has a chance to be really good. And, you put him in the right spots with the right players, he could be Alex DeBrincat. That's who he could be. So where did Alex DeBrincat go? Second round? All he did was score 50 goals and have the puck all night long. Well, that's Logan Stankoven. So I really don't, I don't know. I'm projecting players, and ultimately what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a list, and I'm going to project based on who I think has the ability to be the best in the NHL or contribute in certain areas. It's not straightforward. Third guy's better than the fourth guy. I've talked about this a lot of times, but again, I'm just going to tell you what you're going to hear. Undersized, let me be straightforward. All the BS that goes in with the mistakes that will follow.
Yeah, the scouting with a tape measure-itis that some scouts get afflicted with, and I know you don't. Do you think he projects as more of a goal scorer, or do you think there's a balance between goal scoring and playmaking? His big year in Kamloops, he did have almost 30 goals, but what do you think he projects to be down the road?
So, Dean, let me ask you this question, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Logan Stankoven is a 16-year-old player entering the Western Hockey League, okay? Scored 29 goals. Go through the Western Hockey League and ask and look at how many players overall scored 29 goals.
Right.
He did it as a 16-year-old. As a 16-year-old player. This kid's a good young player, okay? So what I see him as is when I use Alex DeBrincat can score as well as he can make a play. And I think Logan Stankoven is very similar.
Yeah, DeBrincat, one of the reasons the Hawks are doing as well. All right, let's get to Cameron Whynot, a defenseman out of Halifax in the QMJHL, and Ruby ISS Scouting grabbed him for $60. We mentioned Stankoven earlier, $520. Depending on his draft, that could impact that scouting service as a loss, but Cameron Whynot for $60 looks like could be a bit of a steal. He has already doubled his point production from his rookie season in Halifax. What progress do you see and have you seen in his development path?
Big progress, and again, I think a lot of it just came with maturity and confidence, and just growing into his game. Cameron has high IQ in playing the game. Great poise with the puck, really good skater, gets the puck to the right areas at the right times. Doesn't matter where he is on the ice. The puck gets moving. The puck ends up in the spots where you either get out of trouble or you can start to take advantage and apply pressure offensively. The style of player that I would say he reminds me of a lot is TJ Brody. Real smooth, real effortless in terms of, okay, that 12-foot pass, it's coming right to you at the perfect time, and away we go. He's not going to panic defensively. He's not going to overpower you physically because that's not his game. But he's going to take the puck off you. He's going to be in good position. He reads the play exceptionally well, both defensively and offensively and in transition. And, when you start with those elements of just really good, strong sense of the game, and how it's unfolding and what the situations require. And now you can contribute in multiple areas, and you got a poise and a calm to your game. And yet at the same time, when he has to make a play. A lot of players, defensemen, they make a play when they run themselves out of any other option. Cameron doesn't do that. Cameron knows what his options are, and he can put you in a position where he goes, okay, this is my best option. I'm going to deliver it right here, right to you, right now.
Had a decent amount of penalty minutes in his first season. Is he a fairly hard physical defenseman to play, or maybe at times was he just over-aggressive and has reined it in and picked his spots a little bit more?
I would say neither. He's not an overly aggressive player. I don't think physical aggressiveness is his game. I think what happened to Cameron with all those penalty minutes in his rookie year was he was a defenseman that got himself in the right positions but got overpowered physically. So now you're trying to hang on, you're trying to hold, you're trying to hook, you're getting yourself in interference positions, right? And that just becomes because he wasn't strong enough, he wasn't physical enough. And, again, all developmental, all things that as you get stronger, you can hold your space a little bit better, you can rub a guy out a little bit better, and that strength comes all the way from your body with leverage through your core into your upper body, all those things that are part of physical development. So to me, it had nothing to do with his with aggressiveness, or it just had to do with where he was at. And when you're in the right spots and you want to get yourself into those right spots, sometimes at younger ages you get overwhelmed. And I think that was as much of a case for Cameron as anything.
All right, well, Craig joins us courtesy of the UFFS hotline. Scouting is a huge part of the platform, and it is the lifeblood franchises in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League. Any free agent, any prospect goes through a scout, so you can get in the game where you own the game and putting your scouting talent to good use. Become an independent scout or form a partnership with an existing franchise. Reach out for more information at UFH League on Twitter. And Craig, I'm going to throw a bit of a UFHL themed question in our auction, our league rather. The scouts and the teams bid on their players. So my question for you as a scout, if you were to get the choice of a top 5 pick for $1,000 or anybody after round 2 and beyond, so 3 and beyond, 10 players for $100 each, what would your preference be?
Well, unless it's a Connor McDavid or an Austin Matthews or a Mario Lemieux or a player like that, right at the top of the list, because top five, one is different than five in any of those drafts. So unless you can tell me I got a number one pick and it's Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid, one of those elite players, give me the 10 players for the same amount of money. You look at the NHL scoring list. I mean, look at Brad Marchand. Yep, third round pick. Look at Braden Point, third round draft pick. There's lots of players that have come after the second round that are really high producing that get overlooked, or maybe overlooked might be the wrong term, but they get assessed in different ways that may not reflect their full potential once they get to the NHL. And that's why I would take, for the same amount of money, I would take the 10 players over the one. Because you know what? If you want to put all your eggs in one basket, what I need is really simple. Here's what I need. I need a guarantee that it's McDavid or Matthews. If I don't have that guarantee, give me the 10.
All right, that's interesting. I would go the other way. I look at a guy like Cale Makar, and I would definitely take a guy like that inside the top five over the potential. And that's the beauty of our league and different scouts, and even within our organization, people differ, and you work it out just like you would in an NHL organization, because you have to come to some sort of unity as an organization. But it's different strokes for different folks, and that's why it's not one package and robot scouting, right, Craig?
Well, you're exactly right, and you make a great point about, that's how you work it out in the NHL. It's like, okay, what are your thoughts? What are my thoughts? And then you try to weigh out, okay, what's our best course of action? What's our best path? But like, if I told you you'd get John Klingberg in the third round and Braden Point in the third round as opposed to Cale Makar, tell me what you would want.
Yeah. If we could only scout with crystal balls, right, Craig?
Well, that's why. But I'm just saying, like, but when you put all your eggs in one basket, to me, you need guarantees.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the good thing about us is we have 6 baskets in the first round. So, we can take different players. And then when those guys that want those players from rounds 3 to 7, they're not going to be $100 when they get them from us. They're going to be much more because we paid for them. And that's the beauty of it. All right, let's get to Matt Coronato now. And this is a left winger with Chicago of the USHL. Pipeline Prospects grabbed this guy for $35. That, I think, is going to be a pretty big steal and a pretty good profit, Craig. And I look at his numbers in Chicago: 36 goals in 39 games, 31 assists to boot. I don't know how he is not ranked higher than some people have him in the back half of round one. I looked at 8 different rankings, and the average was 29. I have a feeling this guy is going to go a little bit higher than that with those numbers. But what do you think, Craig?
Well, I mean, he's a very talented player, and you look at talent, offensively talented players. Like who doesn't want those players? You can find checkers and energy players in a lot of different parts of the draft, after in the mid rounds. Somebody that has skill and has a real great ability to get his skill in the game in many different ways. Those types of players, they're not common. They're hard to find. So you look at a player, and I don't think Matt is like Brendan Gallagher, but like Brendan Gallagher was a mid-round draft pick. But when you watch Gallagher play junior, he had a hunger, he had a nose, he had the sense in the field. He just needed to physically mature, and he certainly has into a real good player. So who doesn't want Brendan Gallagher? Connor Garland, who plays with the Arizona Coyotes, another player. All he did was produce points, and he ends up, I don't know, a 4th or 5th round draft pick to the Arizona Coyotes. So when I look at Matt Coronato and I see a player that's smart and gifted and hungry and makes plays and is a dangerous player, and I start to look and say, well, geez, when he gets with better players and he has all that skill, why you want to wait? Okay, when you wait on players like Matt Coronato, here's how I feel. What you're really banking on is other teams, if you like them, you're banking on other teams to make a mistake. And to me, that's the mistake. The mistake is just get skill. get a high-end player that can create offensive chances, that makes good on them. It's only going to get better. And to me, that's Matt Coronato in a T. So if you don't want to rate him high, that's okay. You're not going to get him. All I know is that a player like that is of great interest to me.
You know what it reminds me of a little bit, Craig, is a story that you've told a couple of times, and maybe I'll get you to reiterate it for maybe our new listeners and viewers, but about a guy who all he ever did was score 50 goals in the NHL, Mike Bossy, and the discussion in his draft. And that's what this kind of, and I'm not saying that this player is going to be Mike Bossy, but it's similar sounding when you're talking about this player versus this player.
Well, I mean, Mike Bossy, he was a prolific goal scorer, and all he does is score. Ken Holland, the current president and general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, I mean, there was a player in the draft a couple of years ago, and he said his scouts were saying all he does is score, and Ken said, well, at the end of the night, they have the scoreboard up there, and the team that gets more goals ends up with a win and 2 points. So tell me more about all this guy does is score. Right, like and like Mike Bossy, Mike Bossy retired after he realized he couldn't perform anymore at the same level because of his back. I mean, it was physical issues. He scored 39 goals every other year in the NHL. He'd scored 50 or more. One of the best goal scorers ever. So you can find every little thing wrong with a player. You can say, oh, this guy doesn't have this. Or the next perfect player I see will be the first one because they don't exist. So. What does a player do? What are his attributes? How do you think he can translate? How do you help him develop those things? How willing is he to develop those things and get after him? So when I talk about Matt Coronato, go ahead. Logan Stankoven, oh yeah, he's not big enough. He's not tall enough. Okay, good. So in a couple of years' time, we'll be talking about how did they get so-and-so at this point in the draft? How did they get so-and-so at this point in the draft? And on it goes. And Dean, to my dying day, I'm going to be able to say the same exact things. Because the one thing I've learned is nobody learns. Now, I shouldn't say nobody learns. People overall don't learn.
Yeah, not enough of it as well. So when we talk about Matt Coronato, he is heading to Harvard next year. So I wonder how much, maybe not necessarily Harvard, but just programs in general, how much would that factor where he's playing or going to be playing for you if you were drafting him? Going to Harvard, and he plays at Chicago, which we've talked about is just a terrific program. But how much does that factor in for your draft prep, where a player is going to be playing next year?
Well, part of it is development, and I'm always looking at it as long-term development and the environment that the player is going to be in. And the vast majority of them are really good. So if we want to look at Harvard, well, he's going to play for Ted Donato. Ted Donato does a great job of developing players. And you know what? He needs the time, the actual time to just grow into his game, to physically, mentally, and emotionally mature. And he's got a great coach there, somebody that can really guide him along on and off the ice. I mean, it's a perfect situation for Matt Coronato going to Harvard University. It's a great opportunity for him.
Awesome.
And I can tell you this, there are very few places that you would be leery of a player going to that you would say, oh, and let me tell you, there's players that you're drafting, like from junior hockey, and you go, yeah, okay, well, if he goes back there, how much more development is he going to get? So, that concern, it's not just about a player going to university, it's also where a player's coming from, and is he in an environment that will allow him to grow? Because there's some places that aren't very good, Dean. Doesn't mean the player isn't good, but those are considerations you have to take into play. But with Matt Coronato going to Harvard, I mean, it's a great spot for him, and it's, to have Ted Donato there, phenomenal.
Just like in the NHL, Craig, not all development is equal. Lots of NHL teams get great prospects, but don't develop them. And same thing with, development programs as well. And I just want to ask you really quickly about developments in the NHL today. Ralph Kruger being fired in Buffalo. I got to watch him here. I thought he was a great communicator. The players I talked to absolutely loved playing for him. We saw him in the World Cup. But why didn't it work in Buffalo, do you think?
Well, I mean, there's probably a whole host of reasons, but when you go to consider replacing a coach, you're watching how the team plays, And it's a coach's domain to instill a system of team play that not only gives the team the best opportunity to perform to the best of their capabilities, but it's also watching players. Are they able to play to the best of their abilities? They go hand in hand. And, you can look at Buffalo. Are they a Stanley Cup contender? Are they a playoff team? No. But when you watch a team play and you see a real level of disjointedness, and there's not a lot of coordination in their play, and there's factors that you look at and you say, geez, you know what? Why are we doing these things? Why do these types of mistakes continuously show up within our team? Where are the players at in terms of their ability to play in an environment and in a system that brings out the best in them? That's all under the domain of the coach. And so when I watch the Buffalo Sabres, and I'll give you, and as soon as I finish with this, I see a team that certainly you have to look to the coach as responsible for where they find themselves. It wasn't good enough, it wasn't strong enough, and it didn't show any signs of improving. General managers, owners, they'll be patient to an extent, but when you see the same things, and remember, a lot of you're talking to the coach all the time. The communication that goes on. It doesn't mean that the coach isn't working hard and trying to find solutions, but it shows up. And at some point in time, you have to say, listen, we need a different coach. We need a different approach in here. And the reason, and what I'll use this as an example with talent and with a team. Colorado Avalanche, when they hired Jared Bednar, he went in there, and it was a tough spot coming in there after Patrick Waugh had left and Joe Sakic put him in. And the Colorado Avalanche in that 2016-17 season were not very good. But when you watch the Colorado Avalanche play, you didn't look at the team and go, there wasn't a coordinated effort in there. There wasn't things happening with the team that you said, geez, that's under the coaching hand. And the things that a coach can influence is, okay, we're going to play together. We're going to play with an approach. We might not be good enough to get on the right side of the score because we don't have enough talent, but the process is right and the way we're playing is right. So when I watched Jared Bednar, and I had the benefit of watching Jared Bednar, be very successful at leagues lower than him, I was really happy when Joe Sakic kept him because it showed to me that Joe Sakic, number one, was really good at understanding, okay, we got to get more talent here and we'll become a better team, and that his coach was really good. So to me, watching the Buffalo Sabres under Ralph, didn't see very much of that. And that's when you have to look and make a change.
Yeah, and the Buffalo Sabres will hope they get the same success that the Calgary Flames have received since Daryl Sutter took over, and I think Jakob Markstrom certainly plays a hand in that as well. Great stuff, as always, Craig. Thank you so much for your time, your passion, and your knowledge, and we'll chat next week.
We will, Dean. Thank you.
This is a serious message.
Craig Button joins us on the Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports Hotline. Become a scout and make money while provide prospects to the Ultimate Franchise Hockey League.
What you talking about, mister?
Pay that man his money. I'm your huckleberry.
Check out the detail, www.uffsports.com.
It's serious. I like it a lot.
I said we gotta...
UFFS. Own game.
All fun when I get to talk with Mr. Craig Button, the Director of Scouting for TSN and the President of Scouting for High Level Scouting. And you will get to pick Craig's brain next week. We're going to do Craig's Counsel, as I mentioned, off the top. So if there's a story about a particular player that was in an organization that Craig was with, or maybe he looked at in drafting or scouting, if you want some tips on different things specific, be as specific as possible about what you should be looking for with different players or things like that. Scouting tips and story time on Craig's Counsel next week. Here's how you get in touch with us. trackingthedraft@gmail.com. Hit us up, trackingthedraft@gmail.com, and we will add those questions to the list of questions that we've already received throughout the year. So love to hear from you. I can't wait to hear some more stories from Craig for sure. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please subscribe, leave us a review. Let us know what you think. If you're watching on the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network, just hit that subscribe and notification bell, and you will get something every time we produce something here on UFSN. We want to be your one-stop fantasy sports shop. So make sure you subscribe where you're watching here on YouTube. You can also see it streaming on our UFFS social media channels. And if you're listening, thank you very much. Please hit that subscribe. Leave us a review as well. By the way, you can find past episodes of Tracking the Draft at Podcast Alley. Check it out at podcastalley.ca. And make sure you are subscribed to the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network YouTube channel. We got a lot of great stuff coming there. All right, that means it is time to wrap things up on the program. Thank you, of course, to Craig Button, the Director of Scouting at TSN, former GM in the NHL and Stanley Cup champion, for his passion, knowledge, and his time. And thank you, the listener and the viewer, for downloading and watching this show. This has been Tracking the Draft with Craig Button, where the stars of tomorrow are discovered and discussed. My name is Dean Millard. We will catch up with you again next week. Have a great week in scouting.